According to the Gnostics, humanity is not one species, it is three. And most people belong to the type that will never wake up. Not because they are incapable, but because they were designed that way. Built to consume, to obey, to never ask the questions that shatter the illusion. But if you are watching this right now, if something pulled you here, the Gnostics would say you are not one of them, and that makes you dangerous. When the farmer discovered those ancient jars beneath the Egyptian desert in 1945, buried for over 1,600 years, he had no idea what he had uncovered. Inside those sealed clay vessels lay the Nag Hammadi texts, fragments of a worldview so radical that empires worked for centuries to destroy every trace of it. And among the most unsettling revelations hidden in those pages was this: not all humans are the same. According to the Gnostics, humanity exists in three distinct categories, three types of consciousness, three levels of spiritual potential. And the disturbing part is this: only one of those types has any real chance of escaping the prison of this reality. The Gnostics did not speak in terms of race or class or intelligence. They spoke in terms of essence, of what animates you from within. They called these three types the Hylix, the Psychics, and the Pneumatics, and each one operates at a completely different frequency of awareness. Most people have never heard these terms. Most will go their entire lives without ever questioning which category they belong to. But once you understand what the Gnostics were really saying, once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. You begin to recognize these three types everywhere. In your workplace, in your family, in the crowds that fill the streets. And you begin to understand why the world functions the way it does. Let us start with the first type, the Hylix. The word comes from the Greek word hyle, which means matter. The Hylix are those whose entire existence is rooted in the material world. They are not evil. They are not less than human. But according to the Gnostics, they lack the divine spark. They do not possess pneuma, the spirit that connects a soul to the higher realms. The Hylix live entirely through their senses, through appetite, through instinct, through the immediate gratification of physical desires. They are not reflective. They do not ask why. They simply exist within the flow of matter, consuming, reproducing, surviving, and then returning to dust. The Gnostics would say that the Hylix are like automatons, not robots in the literal sense, but beings who move through life without ever truly waking up. They follow trends without questioning. They accept authority without resistance. They chase pleasure and avoid pain, but they never stop to ask what lies beyond the surface. For them, this world is all there is, and they are content with that. They do not feel the pull toward transcendence because there is nothing inside them reaching for it. The demiurge, the false creator, designed them this way. They are the workers, the consumers, the foundation upon which the material system rests, and they will never rebel because rebellion requires a spark they do not carry. This is not a judgment. It is simply the Gnostic observation of reality. The Hylix are necessary for the system to function. Without them, the machinery of the material world would collapse. They build the cities. They staff the factories. They fill the roles that keep society moving. And they do so without ever wondering if there is something more. In Gnostic cosmology, the Hylix are the creation of the archons, not of the true source. They are beings of flesh, animated by instinct, but they do not house the fragment of eternity that defines the higher types. Now here is where it becomes more complex, because the second type, the psychics, appear to be awake. They seem spiritual. They believe in God. They practice religion. They talk about morality and ethics and higher purposes. But according to the Gnostics, the psychics are still trapped. The word psychic comes from psyche, meaning soul. The psychics possess a soul. They have an inner life. They experience guilt, hope, fear, and longing. They are capable of reflection. They ask questions, but their questions never go deep enough. They accept the answers given to them by external authorities, by priests, by scriptures, by traditions, by the structures that the demiurge himself has established. The psychics are the believers. They follow the rules. They attend services. They recite prayers. They think they are worshipping the true God, but in reality, they are worshipping the demiurge. They are caught in the web of organized religion, convinced that obedience will save them. And the tragedy is that their obedience keeps them bound. The psychics are not asleep like the Hillocks, but they are dreaming. They mistake the dream for awakening. They mistake the false light for the true source. They have the capacity for gnosis, for direct inner knowing, but they have outsourced their spirituality. They have given their power to intermediaries, to priests who claim to speak for God, to books that claim to contain the final truth. And so they remain in the cycle, reincarnating, returning, believing that one more lifetime of devotion will finally grant them salvation. The Gnostics saw the psychics as tragic figures. They are so close to freedom, yet so far. They have the divine spark within them, but it is buried beneath layers of programming, beneath belief systems that were designed by the archons to keep them docile. The psychics will argue for their chains. They will defend the very institutions that imprison them, and they will look at those who question those institutions with suspicion, with fear, even with hatred, because to question the structure is to threaten their entire sense of identity. And that is something the psychic mind cannot tolerate. But then there is the third type, the pneumatics. And this is where everything shifts. The word pneumatic comes from pneuma, meaning spirit or breath. The pneumatics are those who carry the fullest expression of the divine spark. They are not just animated by soul, they are animated by spirit, by the same substance that flows from the pleroma, the realm of true light beyond the reach of the demiurge. The pneumatics are rare. They always have been. Throughout history, they have been the mystics, the heretics, the seekers who could not accept the answers they were given. They are the ones who feel a deep, unshakable knowing that something is wrong with this world, that the stories do not add up, that the authorities are lying, that there is a truth hidden beneath the surface, and they will not rest until they find it. The pneumatics do not fit into the system. They try. Many of them spend years trying to belong, trying to believe what they are told to believe, trying to find meaning in the structures that satisfy everyone else. But it never works. There is always a friction, a sense of displacement, a feeling that they are living in a world that was not designed for them. And eventually they stop trying to fit in. They turn inward. They begin the search for gnosis, for direct, unmediated knowledge of the divine. And once they taste that knowledge, once they experience even a glimpse of the truth beyond the veil, there is no going back. The Gnostics believed that the pneumatics are the greatest threat to the demiurge, because the pneumatics cannot be controlled. You cannot bribe them with pleasure like you can the Hillocks. You cannot pacify them with religion like you can the psychics. They see through the illusions. They recognize the archons for what they are. They understand that this world is a counterfeit, a shadow of something infinitely greater, and they refuse to bow to the false god who claims dominion over it. This is why the pneumatics have always been persecuted. This is why the Gnostics themselves were hunted, their texts burned, their teachers silenced. Because a world full of awakened pneumatics is a world where the demiurge loses his power. So how do you know which type you are? The Gnostics would say that if you are asking the question, you are already not a Hillik. The Hilliks do not wonder about such things. They do not watch videos like this. They do not seek hidden knowledge. They are content with the surface. So the question is really between psychic and pneumatic, and the distinction is subtle but crucial. The psychic seeks answers outside themselves. They look to teachers, to books, to systems. They want someone to tell them what is true. The pneumatic, on the other hand, knows that the truth cannot be given. It can only be remembered. It can only be experienced directly, in the silence of their own awareness. If you have spent your life feeling like an outsider, if you have questioned everything, even when it cost you relationships, even when it isolated you, the Gnostics would say that is the mark of the pneumatic. If you have ever felt a pull towards something you cannot name, a longing for a home you have never seen, that is the divine spark calling you back to the pleroma. If you have ever looked at the world and thought, this cannot be all there is, you are hearing the whisper of your true origin. And the more you listen to that whisper, the more the illusion begins to crack. But here is the challenge. The world is designed to suppress the pneumatic. Every system, every institution, every distraction is engineered to keep you from turning inward, to keep you busy, to keep you afraid, to keep you doubting your own knowing. The Archons understand that the pneumatic is the only real threat, so they work tirelessly to bury the spark beneath layers of conditioning. They flood your mind with noise. They offer you endless entertainment, endless conflict, endless reasons to look outward instead of inward. And for many pneumatics, the spark remains dormant for an entire lifetime. They feel the friction, but they never understand why. They sense the wrongness, but they never find the source. This is why the Gnostics emphasize gnosis above all else. Not faith, not obedience, but direct, experiential knowledge, the kind of knowledge that cannot be taught, only awakened. The kind of knowledge that dissolves the prison the moment you truly see it. Because the prison is not made of matter. It is made of belief. It is made of the stories you have been told about who you are, where you came from, and what you are supposed to do. And the moment you stop believing those stories, the moment you turn your attention inward and touch the spark that the demiurge cannot reach, the walls begin to crumble. The Gnostics did not see the three types as a hierarchy of worth. They saw them as a map of spiritual development. The Hillik is trapped in matter. The psychic is caught in belief. The pneumatic is awakening to truth. And while the Gnostics believed that not everyone carries the same potential, they also believed that the potential within the pneumatic is infinite. Because the pneumatic is not just human. They are a fragment of the eternal, a child of the true source, a being who was never meant to be imprisoned in the first place. Now here is the part that disturbs people. Because if the Gnostics are right, if there really are three types, then what does that mean for the Hilliks? What does it mean for the psychics? Can they change? Can a Hillik become a psychic? Can a psychic become a pneumatic? The texts are not entirely clear on this. Some Gnostic schools believed that the types were fixed, determined at the moment of creation. Others believed that the spark could be awakened in anyone, given the right conditions. But what they all agreed on was this: the majority will never awaken. Not because they cannot, but because they will not. because awakening requires something most people are unwilling to do. It requires letting go of everything you have been told. It requires facing the void. It requires standing alone. And most people would rather stay asleep than face that kind of solitude. Most people would rather cling to the comfort of the known, even if the known is a lie, than step into the unknown in search of truth. This is not weakness. It is simply the nature of the system. The Demiurge has built a world where awakening is the hardest path, where every force pushes you back towards sleep, where comfort, distraction, fear, and social pressure all conspire to keep the spark buried. And for the Hillik, there is no spark to bury. They are at peace in the material world because they belong to it completely. But if you are watching this, if you have made it this far, the Gnostics would say you are not a Hillik. You might be a psychic on the edge of awakening. You might be a pneumatic who has forgotten but is beginning to remember. Either way, something inside you is stirring. Something is pulling you toward the truth. And that pull is not random. It is the divine spark recognizing itself. It is the fragment of eternity inside you calling out to the source from which it came. And once that call begins, it does not stop. It only grows louder. So what do you do with this knowledge? How do you move from psychic to pneumatic? How do you awaken the spark? The Gnostics would say it begins with silence, with turning off the noise, with stepping away from the authorities, the scriptures, the teachers who claim to have the answers. It begins with sitting in stillness and asking, who am I beyond the roles I play? Who am I beyond the name I was given? Who am I beyond the body, beyond the thoughts, beyond the stories? And in that silence, if you listen deeply enough, you will hear the answer. Not in words, but in presence. Not as information, but as recognition. You will remember what you have always known, that you are not of this world, that you are a spark of the eternal, temporarily housed in flesh, but never truly bound by it. And when that remembering happens, when the gnosis awakens, everything changes. You stop seeking salvation from the outside. You stop waiting for permission. You stop fearing death because you recognize that death is just another illusion of the Demiurge. You see the archons for what they are. Not all-powerful gods, but parasites, feeding on ignorance. And the moment you stop feeding them, the moment you withdraw your energy from fear and distraction and false belief, their power over you dissolves. Because they were never real. They were only ever as real as you believed them to be. So which type are you? If you have made it to the end of this video, if these words resonated somewhere deep inside you, then you already know the answer. The Hilliks never question. The psychics rarely dig this deep. But the pneumatics, they recognize the truth when they hear it. Not because someone told them it was true, but because something inside them remembers. And that remembering is the first step toward freedom. The Gnostics left these teachings hidden for a reason. They knew that one day those who carry the spark would find them. And when they
Let's see what else he's got. Let's see. Let's see what this one then he got.
wrote about a prince who travelled to a foreign land to retrieve a pearl, but when he arrived, something terrible happened. He forgot he was a prince at all, and that prince is you. The foreign land is earth. The pearl is your divine spark, and the sleep that made you forget was not an accident. It was the Demiurge's most powerful weapon, designed to keep you here forever. Most people live their entire lives without ever asking the question that matters most. Why am I here? Not in the shallow sense of purpose or career or legacy, but in the deepest, most ancient sense. Why is my consciousness trapped inside this body, inside this world, inside this cycle of birth and death? The Gnostics had an answer, and it was not the answer you were given in Sunday school. It was not the answer whispered by priests or written in the books they allowed you to read. It was hidden, buried beneath centuries of control, mistranslation, and deliberate erasure. Because the truth they discovered was too dangerous, too liberating, too close to unlocking the prison itself. In the early centuries after Christ, before the church became an empire, before the councils decided which books were holy and which were heresy, there were texts, secret teachings, mystical hymns, and among them was a story so profound, so deeply encoded with Gnostic wisdom, that it survived only in fragments, whispered in the margins of forgotten manuscripts. It was called the Hymn of the Pearl, and it was not just a story. It was a map, a mirror, a remembering. The Hymn of the Pearl appears in a larger text known as the Acts of Thomas, written sometime in the 2nd or 3rd century. While the Acts of Thomas itself became part of the apocryphal tradition, the hymn within it stood apart. Scholars recognize it as a purely Gnostic insertion, a parable so distinct in its language and symbolism that it could only have come from those who saw the world not as creation, but as captivity. The hymn tells the story of a young prince, born in the East, in a kingdom of light and splendor. His parents, the king and queen of the highest realm, send him on a mission. He must ascend into Egypt, a land of darkness and chaos, to retrieve a single pearl guarded by a serpent. This pearl, they tell him, is precious beyond measure. And so the prince leaves his royal garments behind, dons the clothing of Egypt so he will not be recognized, and begins his journey into the foreign land. But here is where the story takes its darkest turn. The moment the prince arrives in Egypt, he is surrounded by the people of that land. They offer him their food. They speak to him in their language. They draw him into their customs, their distractions, their endless concerns. And slowly, subtly, without even realizing it, the prince begins to forget. He forgets the pearl. He forgets his mission. He forgets his parents. He forgets the kingdom of light. He even forgets that he is a prince at all. He falls into a deep sleep, a sleep so complete that he believes he has always belonged to Egypt. He believes this dark, heavy land is his home. Back in the kingdom of light, his parents see what has happened. They see their son wandering lost, clothed in rags, living as a slave in the very land he was sent to liberate. And so they send him a letter, a message carried by an eagle, written in the language of his true home. The letter does not argue, it does not explain, it simply calls, it reminds. It says, remember who you are, remember the pearl, remember us, remember your mission, wake up. And when the prince hears those words, something stirs within him. A flicker of recognition, a distant memory rising from beneath the fog of forgetting. He remembers. He casts off the clothing of Egypt. He confronts the serpent. He retrieves the pearl. And he returns home, where his royal garments are waiting for him, shining, as if they had never left his body at all. Now ask yourself, why would the early church fathers tolerate this story in their texts, even as they condemned so many others? Perhaps because on the surface it seems harmless, a tale of a prince on a quest, a metaphor for Christ descending to save humanity. But the Gnostics understood it differently. They saw this hymn not as allegory, but as revelation. Not as a story about one prince, but about every soul. Every human being reading those words was meant to see themselves in that prince. You are the one who came from the kingdom of light. You are the one sent on a mission. You are the one who forgot. The Gnostics taught that the soul does not originate in this world. It originates in the pleroma, the fullness, the realm of pure light and consciousness, where the true God, the unknowable source, resides. In that realm there is no suffering, no time, no decay. There is only being, eternal and complete. But something happened. The Gnostics called it the fall of Sophia. Divine wisdom, in her longing to create, brought forth a being without the consent of the source. That being was Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, the blind god who did not know he was not supreme. In his ignorance, he declared himself the only god. He created the material world, a prison of matter and time, and populated it with archons, rulers assigned to guard the gates, to keep souls bound within the cycles of incarnation. But here is the secret. The demiurge could not create true life. He could only shape matter. So he stole. He trapped fragments of the divine light, sparks of the pleroma, and imprisoned them inside human bodies. That spark is you. Your consciousness, your awareness, the part of you that feels out of place in this world, that senses there is something more, that longs for a home you cannot name. That is the pearl. That is what you came here to retrieve. But the moment you descended into this realm, the moment you took on flesh, the archons went to work. They fed you the food of forgetfulness. They dressed you in the heavy garments of identity, ego, fear, desire. They whispered in your mind until you believed their voice was your own, and you forgot. This is why the hymn of the pearl is so dangerous, because it does not ask you to have faith. It does not ask you to obey. It asks you to remember. And remembering is the one thing the demiurge cannot survive. The entire system, the entire architecture of control, depends on your amnesia. If you remember who you are, where you came from, and why you are here, the prison begins to crack. The archons lose their power. The cycle breaks. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of it have you spent chasing things that do not satisfy? How many desires have you fulfilled only to find yourself empty again, searching for the next thing, the next achievement, the next distraction? The Gnostics would say this is not accidental. This is the food of Egypt. This is the mechanism of forgetting. Every time you lose yourself in the endless noise of this world, every time you identify with your body, your status, your fears, you are falling deeper into the sleep. And the archons, those cosmic wardens, are watching, because a soul that is asleep is a soul that will never escape. But you are here right now, reading these words, watching this video. And that means something in you is stirring. That means the letter has arrived. The Gnostics believed that gnosis, direct inner knowing, could not be taught. It could only be awakened. You cannot be convinced of your divine origin. You can only remember it. And the remembering happens in moments of stillness, in flashes of recognition, in the sudden awareness that you are not your
You
thoughts,
leaving early?
not your body, not the story you have been told.
Huh?
You are the one
Okay.
watching,
It's gonna
the
be
one
taken away?
aware,
Yeah, also.
the prince beneath the rags.
Huh?
So how do you retrieve the power?
No, never brought it down. I didn't use it. I probably should have had it on.
What?
I should have been using it.
It's good, yeah.
I didn't
I
crack
fell
my
last time
head.
I didn't have my helmet on.
Yeah.
Ooh. I forgot I held it on, so I went like this, and I just like, oh, I'm just gonna fall. Oh, that was a bad idea.
Oh, because you had the helmet banged your head around too.
No, I didn't have my helmet on.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm so used to it that my head just like my head just automatically fell back, and like, oh, I felt it bad. I just sat there, staring at the sky, like, oh.
Oh, I'm gonna feel this one tomorrow. That's for sure.
The helmet?
No, my pain from falling.
I mean, it goes away, but
Yeah, for you young bucks, yeah. I don't know about me.
I feel in the future. I don't know where's my helmet. I don't know. I'm getting really early because I want to test out the snowboard and just go down a couple times before Auntie gets here.
Oh, you're gonna take your own snowboard?
No, I'm just gonna go over here.
Oh.
I want to test out the box.
I wouldn't. You're gonna hurt yourself before you go boarding. So just don't do anything ridiculous back there. Trust me. That's mountains. There's a tough mountain. Dead Man's Mountain, man. Fucking be careful. Yeah.
Well, if Dead Man's Mountain extends.
There's this tiny little fucking hill. I mean, it's like maybe 3 feet, and it's kind of a drop. But I was trying to snowboard on it, and I fell, man. I fucking hurt myself because the legs were not. I couldn't lock my feet in. So I texted him that I took a spill down Dead Man's Mountain. It's just tiny little fucking hill.
The people who distract him, the serpent that guards the pearl. These are not literal beings, though the Gnostics believed they could manifest as such. They are forces, frequencies, patterns of consciousness that vibrate at the level of fear, of attachment, of identification with form. And when you vibrate at that level, you become visible to them. You become food. This is why the letter from home is so crucial. The letter is not written in the language of Egypt. It is written in the language of the kingdom of light. The Gnostics believed this language was not made of words, but of resonance. It speaks directly to the divine spark within you, bypassing the mind, bypassing the ego, bypassing all the layers of conditioning. You do not understand the letter intellectually. You feel it. You recognize it. It is the voice that has been whispering to you your entire life, beneath all the noise saying, this is not your home. You do not belong here. Remember, wake up, come back. And here is the most important part. The letter does not save you. It reminds you that you can save yourself. The prince does not wait for rescue. He wakes. He acts. He confronts the serpent. He takes the pearl. The Gnostics were not pacifists. They were not waiting for a savior to descend and fix everything. They understood that Christ, the true Christ, the Aeon of Light, came not to save you, but to remind you that you have the power to save yourself. This is why the church condemned them, because a soul that knows its own power is a soul that cannot be controlled. Now here is where the story becomes even more profound. In the Hymn of the Pearl, when the prince retrieves the pearl and returns home, he finds his royal garments waiting for him. And as he puts them on, he realizes something astonishing.
It's just a big clump.
Did he try doing the hill?
They fit him
Did he try doing Dead Man's
They had
Mountain?
been growing with him all along, even while he was lost
I might
in
go to
Egypt.
snowman.
The Gnostics interpreted this as the reunion of the soul with its true self, its pneuma, its spiritual body, the part of you that never fell, that remained in the pleroma, untouched by the demiurge.
Since I'm talking anyways over this video, I might as well mention a few things. Obviously a photograph of the moon. I've been throwing a lot of my videos of the moon also to show you guys what it is I'm showing you. Everywhere where you see me cropping, I'm cropping on timelines. These are timelines. Hold on. I don't know if anybody's listening. Anyways, so I'm cropping on these timelines. All these timelines come out of these places like this. See the eyes of this one I keep going in on that I like a lot. See his eyes? Okay, all these little lines that are coming out of his eyes, right? See all the lines coming out? I could put another filter on and make it a lot more clear, but I'm just giving you some examples. Okay, the moon is works several different. It does several different things. It goes around in a clockwise rotation through our sky, working as the false creator / creator's clock, so that we would know at least the false creator / creator's clock. Sticking to the moon, sticking to these timelines, the biggest timeline comes out of the Sea of Tranquility, the biggest set of timelines. Okay, so that's the largest set, and you see them running through. You see them running through, and you also notice the imagery is everywhere, just like in the clouds, the trees, the waters, everywhere else that I'm showing all of you, where you can all see the true creator's work that you're all still denial about. You can see I can tilt my camera, change my angles and distances of perspective. And the nice thing about the moon is that the imagery never changes. It's not like the clouds where they're rolling by or whatever. So trees, rocks, that's hard to get through people's head. When we're talking about the moon, it's a little bit easier to be able to show it to you, show you the angles and distances of perspective so you can see the images in there. And then once you see the images, notice the timelines coming out, breaking these images, right? They're cutting them. So that's what I'm doing. I just learned to do that. And that's how you see the images the best. That's the best way you see them. They're natural timelines. So when the moon's, what you call the moon shadow, is doing a crescent either this way or this way, it's all intentional. It's intentional. It's nothing that they tell us in school. It's nothing that they tell us in the Bible. It's nothing that anybody tells us. But you can all go see what it is I'm telling you is true just by going and looking yourself. And you'll notice these things, right? So I get a big image like this that I'm pulling the camera off for. I can go up to his left eye. It's a little bit tough to work the camera and my cropping tools and everything like that. I'm just letting you all know as I'm watching these, playing these videos through, I'm cropping these images, sometimes with my hands, sometimes with cropping tools, which is just pieces of cardboard with shapes on them, because I got to know that I need all these different shapes in order to crop, because sometimes the crescent's coming through like this, right? It's coming through on a roundish this way, sometimes it's this way, the sizes, if I'm going in and out, and which cropping tools I'm going to use. So I just got used to doing it. Anyways, these areas where the timelines come out of are all over the place. Maybe I'll point them out once in a while when I'm doing some videos, and I will do a couple of videos that'll be really good and explain it all in a lot more detail. But that's what we're looking at. Feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast. The same images that I'm showing you everywhere else. I'm showing it to you a little more in detail. I'm automatically going in and out, changing my angles and distances of perspective as I'm going along to show you how I'm pulling lights and shadows around with my camera in order to show you things a little bit better, right? Bang, ba-bang, ba-boom. I want to get you in so that hopefully people that are seeing this, it's always image within image within image. It's collaged. So what I'm doing by cropping is taking out some of the collage for you, right? So I'm taking out the collage by getting rid of all the images that are over here that are going to distract your eyes, and I'm bringing it down to one image that I like. So I'm trying to bring you in on it, right? So I'm giving you the eyes. I know that you'll see it, but at the same time, I'm dragging my camera back and forth like this because I want you to catch the teeth, the mouth, the hair around the sides without pulling in other images. Then, as I'm doing that, it would be a lot better if I did this. If I also, because I can crop from the top and the bottom. Sometimes I do, but it depends on if anybody's paying attention to what I'm doing. Because see, then I can crop the entire image. Watch. See, all the hairdo is what I'm cropping. So when I do that, now you can see the image I'm trying to get you to see without being distracted by these images above and the images on the side and all that shit, because it's a collage. So that's all I'm doing when I'm cropping. This is the moon. They're all moon photographs. Sometimes they're my own. Sometimes they're other people's moon photos that I'm using in moon videos. And I love doing it on paper, but people just don't get it. When you do it on paper, they think that it's cheating somehow or some shit. But the printer prints this all up beautifully. We can all go see this for ourselves and look at it for ourselves. No one ever does. All right. I don't know where I left off on this video, so let me...
If you remember who you are, where you came from, and why you are here, the prison begins to crack. The Archons lose their power. The cycle breaks. Think about your own life for a moment. How much of it have you spent chasing things that do not satisfy? How many desires have you fulfilled only to find yourself empty again, searching for the next thing, the next achievement, the next distraction? The Gnostics would say this is not accidental. This is the food of Egypt. This is the mechanism of forgetting. Every time you lose yourself in the endless noise of this world, every time you identify with your...
So feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast, faces only, which is a weird thing because when I say faces only, I'm gonna be showing you. Okay, love you. Have fun. I'm gonna be showing you other things that are not.
But you are here right now, reading these words, watching this video. And that means something in you is stirring. That means the letter has arrived. The Gnostics believed that gnosis, direct inner knowing, could not be taught. It could only be awakened. You cannot be convinced of your divine origin. You can only remember it. And the remembering happens in moments of stillness, in flashes of recognition, in the sudden awareness that you are not your thoughts, not your body, not the story you have been told. You are the one watching, the one aware, the prince beneath the rags. So how do you retrieve the pearl? How do you wake up fully? The Gnostics offered practices, disciplines, ways of seeing. First, you must recognize the Archons for what they are. Not as literal demons with pitchforks, but as forces, patterns, voices in your mind that keep you distracted, divided, afraid. Every time you feel pulled into rage, into envy, into despair, pause. Ask yourself, is this mine? Or is this being fed to me? The moment you question, you reclaim power. Second, cultivate stillness. The noise of this world is designed to keep you from hearing the voice of your true home. Meditation, silence, solitude. These are not empty rituals. They are acts of rebellion. Because in the silence, the Archons cannot reach you. In the stillness, the letter can be heard. Third, remember the pleroma, not as a place you will go when you die, but as the truth of what you are right now. You are not waiting to become divine. You are divine, covered in the dust of Egypt. The pearl is not lost. It is buried. And every moment of awareness, every conscious breath, every choice to turn inward rather than outward is an act of excavation. The Gnostics did not believe in salvation through obedience. They believed in liberation through awakening. And awakening is not a distant event. It is a present possibility. The Archons have built layer upon layer of deception to keep you from this realization. They have constructed what the Gnostics called the Hebdomad, the 7 planetary spheres, each one ruled by an Archon who demands tribute, who tests the soul, who tries to turn it back. In the language of the hymn, these are the obstacles the prince faces in Egypt, the food that makes him forget, the people who distract him, the serpent that guards the pearl. These are not literal beings, though the Gnostics believed they could manifest as such. They are forces, frequencies, patterns of consciousness that vibrate at the level of fear, of attachment, of identification with form. And when you vibrate at that level, you become visible to them. You become food. This is why the letter from home is so crucial. The letter is not written in the language of Egypt. It is written in the language of the kingdom of light. The Gnostics believed this language was not made of words, but of resonance. It speaks directly to the divine spark within you, bypassing the mind, bypassing the ego, bypassing all the layers of conditioning. You do not understand the letter intellectually. You feel it. You recognize it. It is the voice that has been whispering to you your entire life, beneath all the noise saying, "This is not your home. You do not belong here. Remember, wake up, come back." And here is the most important part. The letter does not save you. It reminds you that you can save yourself. The prince does not wait for rescue. He wakes. He acts. He confronts the serpent. He takes the pearl. The Gnostics were not pacifists. They were not waiting for a savior to descend and fix everything. They understood that Christ, the true Christ, the Aeon of Light, came not to save you, but to remind you that you have the power to save yourself. This is why the Church condemned them, because a soul that knows its own power is a soul that cannot be controlled. Now here is where the story becomes even more profound. In the Hymn of the Pearl, when the prince retrieves the pearl and returns home, he finds his royal garments waiting for him. And as he puts them on, he realizes something astonishing. The garments recognize him. They fit him perfectly, as if they had been growing with him all along, even while he was lost in Egypt. The Gnostics interpreted this as the reunion of the soul with its true self, its pneuma, its spiritual body, the part of you that never fell, that remained in the pleroma, untouched by the demiurge, waiting. This is the promise. You are not broken. You are not lost beyond recovery. You are a prince in exile, and the moment you remember, the moment you turn toward home, everything you left behind will be there, radiant, as if no time has passed at all. But the demiurge does not want you to know this. The archons do not want you to remember, and so they have built an entire world designed to keep you asleep. They have constructed religions that tell you to wait, to obey, to believe that you are inherently sinful and small. They have created systems of distraction, endless scrolling, endless consumption, endless comparison, so that you never have a moment of silence long enough to hear the call. They have weaponized your own mind, filling it with fear and doubt, and the voice that says you are not enough. You will never be enough. You must keep striving, keep chasing, keep forgetting. And most people never break free. Most people live and die in Egypt, never knowing they were princes at all. But you are different. You are here. And that means the letter has reached you. The question now is, will you read it? Will you remember? Or will you set it aside, tell yourself it is just a story, just a myth, and return to the distractions of the foreign land? The Gnostics believed that every soul has a choice. Not in the sense of free will as the philosophers debated it, but in the sense of recognition. You can choose to see. You can choose to remember. You can choose to reclaim the pearl. And the moment you do, everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you remember what you are beneath the world. You remember that you are not of Egypt. You are of the light. And the light cannot be extinguished, no matter how deep the darkness. In the modern world, the mechanisms of forgetting have become more sophisticated than the Gnostics could have imagined. The archons no longer need serpents and foreign lands. They have screens. They have algorithms designed to capture your attention and never let it go. They have entire industries built around making you feel inadequate, incomplete, always one purchase away from happiness, always one achievement away from worth. The food of Egypt is no longer bread. It is content, endless content, endless distraction, endless noise. And every minute you spend scrolling, comparing, consuming is another minute you remain asleep in the foreign land. But here is the paradox the Archons did not anticipate. The very tools they use to enslave can also awaken. You are watching this video right now. Information that was hidden for centuries, locked away in libraries and monasteries, condemned as heresy, is now available to anyone with an internet connection. The letter from home is being sent in 1,000 forms, in videos like this, in books, in moments of synchronicity when you stumble upon exactly what you needed to hear at exactly the right time. The Gnostics called this providence. Not the providence of a controlling God, but the providence of the pleroma reaching through the cracks, reminding you, calling you back. The Hymn of the Pearl was never meant to be just ancient poetry. It was encoded instruction, a transmission across time, waiting for the moment when you would be ready to hear it. The prince in the story is not a character from the past. He is you right now, in this present moment. And the choice before you is the same choice that has always existed. Will you continue to eat the food of Egypt, wearing the heavy garments of forgetfulness, believing this material world is all there is? Or will you hear the letter, recognize the voice calling from beyond the veil, and begin the journey back to the kingdom of light? The Archons have built their prison well, but they made one fatal mistake. They could not extinguish the spark, and that spark, no matter how deeply buried, never stops whispering the truth. You are not from here. You never were. And the pearl you seek has been inside you all along. If this exploration opened something within you, if you felt that flicker of recognition, that ancient remembering stirring beneath the surface, then you are part of a growing awakening. This is not just information. This is the letter arriving in your life right now. Share this video with others who are ready to hear it, because the Gnostics believed liberation is not solitary. When one soul remembers, it creates ripples that help others wake. Hit that like button if this resonated with your divine spark, and subscribe to the Gnostic Eye so you never miss our journey into the hidden teachings they tried to erase. Turn on notifications, because each video is another fragment of the map, another piece of the remembering. The path home is revealing itself, one truth at a time.
Jane Roberts sat across from her husband Rob in their
The Gnostic. God. But the Gnostics whispered a darker truth. This reality was born from sorrow, from tears that should never have fallen. Because Sophia, the Aeon of Wisdom, made a choice that shattered the heavens. Her tears did not evaporate into nothing. They became the substance of planets, stars, and flesh. The very atoms of your body carry the grief of a goddess who lost everything trying to create alone. Long before the first star ignited, long before time itself existed as we know it, there was only the pleroma, the fullness, an infinite ocean of pure light, consciousness without boundary, divinity without separation. Within this eternal realm dwelled the aeons, divine emanations of the unknowable source, each one a perfect expression of divine attributes. And among them, radiant beyond measure, was Sophia. Her name meant wisdom. Her essence was the yearning to know, to understand, to create. The aeons existed in perfect pairs. Divine, syzygy, masculine and feminine in eternal balance, creating through union with the source and with each other. But Sophia carried something the other aeons did not, a desire so profound it could not be contained, a longing that whispered in the depths of her being. She wanted to create not in union, not through the balanced harmony of the pleroma, but alone. She wanted to know what she herself could bring forth, to see her own reflection in an act of creation. The Gnostic texts describe this moment with trembling reverence. The Apocryphon of John tells us that Sophia conceived a thought without the consent of the Spirit, without the agreement of her consort. She reached inward, drawing from her own divine essence, and she gave form to that thought. But what emerged was not divine. It could not be. Because true creation, the Gnostics taught, requires the balance of opposites, the union of polarities. What Sophia brought forth alone was incomplete, distorted, a reflection in broken glass. And so Yaldabaoth was born, the demiurge, a being with the body of a serpent and the face of a lion, eyes flashing like lightning, monstrous and magnificent and utterly ignorant. He did not know the pleroma. He did not know the realms of light above him. He knew only himself. And in his ignorance, he declared, "I am God. There is no other but me." When Sophia saw what she had brought into existence, the texts tell us that she was seized with horror. This was not the beauty she had imagined, not the wisdom she had hoped to manifest. This was something twisted, something that should not be. And in that instant, the first emotion the pleroma had ever known erupted from her being. Grief. Sorrow so deep it could not be expressed in light, so heavy it could not remain in the realm of spirit. Sophia wept, and her tears fell. They fell from the heights of the pleroma, descending through layers of light that grew dimmer with each passing moment. They fell through realms the aeons had never touched, through spaces that had never known form. And as they fell, something happened that had never occurred in all of eternity. The tears began to change. They began to condense. They began to solidify. The Gnostics understood what modern mystics often overlook. Emotion is not abstract. Grief is not mere feeling. In the metaphysical architecture of reality, sorrow has weight. Divine sorrow, the kind that comes from a being of pure light, witnessing the birth of ignorance from her own essence, has a density that pulls it downward, away from the source, into realms of increasing darkness and limitation. Sophia's tears did not disappear. They accumulated. Layer upon layer, they formed substrates of existence that had never been intended. The first drops became the firmament, the boundary between spirit and matter. As more tears fell, they thickened into the substance of the stars, into the gases and dust that would one day coalesce into galaxies. The grief kept pouring, kept descending, kept solidifying until it reached its densest form. Matter, physical, tangible, impenetrable matter. This is the secret the Church could never allow. This is the knowledge that was branded heresy and buried beneath centuries of doctrine. The material world, according to the Gnostics, is not the intentional creation of the supreme God. It is the crystallized sorrow of a divine being who acted outside of balance, whose grief became so profound that it took on form. You are not living in a paradise created by love. You are living in the fossilized tears of a goddess who lost her way. Yaldabaoth, ignorant of his own origin, ignorant of the pleroma above him, looked upon this new dense realm and believed he had created it. He took the substance of Sophia's tears and began to shape it, to mold it, to build a kingdom where he could rule. He created the Archons, 12 rulers aligned with the zodiac, 7 planetary governors tied to the wandering stars, and 365 lesser powers governing each day of the year. He wove them into the very fabric of this material reality, embedding control into the structure of time and space itself. But here is the mystery the Gnostic initiates whispered to one another in secret gatherings, away from the eyes of those who would kill them for speaking it. Sophia's tears did not just create matter. They infused it with something the Demiurge could never understand. Her divine spark, her essence. Every drop of her sorrow carried within it a fragment of her consciousness, a piece of the wisdom she embodied. And when the material world was formed, when planets coalesced and oceans filled and life began to stir, that spark was already there, embedded in the substance of creation itself. This is why the Gnostics taught that the material world is not purely evil, despite being a prison. It is tragic. It is a distortion. But it also contains, hidden within its densest corners, scattered throughout its atoms and molecules, fragments of the divine feminine, pieces of Sophia herself, waiting to remember, waiting to awaken, waiting to return home. When the Demiurge fashioned the first human beings, he used the clay of the earth, the solidified tears of Sophia, and he breathed into them his own arrogant spirit. But he did not know what he was doing. He did not know that the substance he was shaping already contained something beyond his reach. The clay itself remembered the pleroma. The matter itself carried the ache of return. And so humanity was born with a contradiction at its core. A body made from divine grief, animated by the breath of the false god, but secretly harboring a spark that belongs to the realms of light. This is the Gnostic doctrine of the divine spark. It is not an abstract concept, it is literal. You carry within you, according to this teaching, a fragment of Sophia herself, a drop of her tears that never fully solidified, that retained its memory of the fullness, that yearns even now to return to the pleroma. Every time you feel that strange homesickness for a place you have never been, every time you sense that the world is not what it claims to be, every time you know in your bones that you do not belong here, that is the voice of Sophia within you, weeping still, calling you to remember. But the tears did more than create matter. They also created the conditions for redemption. Because Sophia, even in her fall, even in her grief, remained an aeon. She remained connected, however tenuously, to the pleroma above. And the other aeons, seeing her plight, seeing the tragic consequence of her solitary act, did not abandon her. They could not descend into the material realm themselves without becoming trapped as she was. But they could send something, a messenger, a revealer, a savior figure who could enter the dense world of matter without being consumed by it. This is where the Gnostic interpretation of Christ diverges radically from Orthodox Christianity. In Gnostic cosmology, Christ is not the son of the Demiurge, not the chosen one of the Old Testament God. Christ is an aeon, a being of pure light sent from the pleroma to awaken the sleeping sparks of Sophia trapped in human bodies. His mission was not to die for sins, not to appease an angry God, but to remind humanity of its true origin, to speak the words that would trigger remembrance, to teach the gnosis that could dissolve the illusion of separation. The Pistis Sophia, one of the most detailed Gnostic texts, describes Sophia's journey of repentance and restoration. It tells of how she sang hymns of sorrow from the depths of the material chaos, how she cried out to the light above, how she acknowledged her mistake and begged for redemption. And the text describes how, one by one, emanations from the pleroma descended to help her, to guide the scattered pieces of her consciousness back toward wholeness, to slowly, patiently gather the tears she had shed and transform them back into light. This is the work that continues even now, the Gnostics believed. Every soul that awakens, every human being that remembers the divine spark within, is a piece of Sophia being restored. Every act of true gnosis, every moment of direct knowing that pierces the veil of the demiurge's illusion, is one of her tears evaporating back into spirit. The material world will not last forever. It was never meant to. It is a temporary consequence of a tragic mistake, and it is slowly, inexorably, being undone as the divine feminine reclaims what was lost. But the path is not easy. The demiurge and his archons work tirelessly to keep the sparks asleep, to keep humanity distracted, forgetful, convinced that this dense world of matter is all there is. They use every tool at their disposal: fear, desire, attachment, the endless cycles of birth and death. They have built systems of belief that tell you to worship the creator of this world, to bow to the god of matter, never realizing you are bowing to the ignorant offspring of the one whose tears you are made from. And here is the deeper question that the Gnostics asked, the question that unsettles even now. If the material world is made from Sophia's grief, what does that mean for suffering? What does that mean for pain, for loss, for every moment of sorrow you have ever felt? The Gnostic answer is both beautiful and devastating. Your suffering is not random. It is not punishment. It is the echo of her original grief, reverberating through the substance of matter itself. Every tear you cry is a memory of her tears. Every heartbreak you endure is a fractal of her heartbreak. But this also means that your sorrow has meaning. It is not meaningless, not purposeless.
He went with
It is
Auntie
the
Jen to go
mechanism by
skiing.
which the material world is being dissolved. Grief, when fully felt, when not suppressed or denied, has the power to soften matter, to make it less dense, to prepare it for transformation back into light. This is why the Gnostics did not teach you to escape emotion or to transcend suffering through detachment. They taught you to feel it fully, to recognize it as sacred, to understand that in your deepest moments of sorrow, you are participating in the cosmic process of Sophia's return. The tears are still falling, even now. Not from Sophia in the pleroma, for she has long since ceased her weeping, but from the fragments of her consciousness scattered throughout this world. From you, every time you grieve, every time you mourn, every time you feel the weight of this world pressing down on your soul, you are continuing her work. You are liquefying matter. You are softening the prison. You are preparing the substance of reality itself to return to its source. And this is why the Archons fear human sorrow most of all. Not anger, which they can redirect. Not desire, which they can manipulate. But genuine grief, the kind that comes from remembering what was lost, from knowing that you once belonged to the light and now find yourself trapped in density. That kind of sorrow is corrosive to their system. It dissolves the very matter they use to build their kingdom. It threatens the stability of the demiurge's creation, so they teach you to suppress it. They tell you to be strong, to move on, to not dwell on sadness. They build entire cultures around the avoidance of grief, the denial of sorrow, the medicating of tears. Because they know that if you ever fully felt the depth of Sophia's original grief moving through you, if you ever allowed yourself to weep not just for your personal losses, but for the cosmic tragedy of separation from the source, their hold on you would begin to crumble. The Gnostics preserved rituals for this. Secret practices passed from teacher to student, designed to help the initiate access the wellspring of divine sorrow within. They would meditate on Sophia's fall, not as a distant myth, but as a living reality happening within their own consciousness. They would allow themselves to feel the full weight of her grief, to cry the tears that had been forming worlds, to let the sorrow move through them until it began to transform, until grief became gnosis, until weeping became awakening. Because on the other side of that sorrow lies something the demiurge can never touch: recognition, remembrance, the direct knowing that you are not merely human.